Welcome to Everyone's Picasso, celebrating 50 years of a Chicago icon. Let's give this beauty a hand. I am Mark Kelly, the Commissioner for the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, and it's my pleasure to greet you and to thank our many guests and participants today. Mayor Emanuel and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events have designated 2017 as the year of public art, with a new 50 by 50 neighborhood arts project, art in every neighborhood in the city, a new public art festival, exhibitions, tours, and more. In total, over $1.5 million dedicated to public art throughout the city. There's more information about our public art festival coming up in October. In the meantime, please join us for several public and art and Picasso events this weekend and next week at the Chicago Cultural Center and at the Harold Washington Library Center. All the details are in your program. Now, before I share my reflections on the Chicago Picasso, a few words of thanks. First of all, grant support from Allstate Insurance Company and the Terra Foundation for American Art. Please give them a hand. Thanks to artist Edra Soto for today's veil design, and to cultural historian Paul Derica for designing today's ceremony. Please, let's thank them. Also, special thanks to Busy Beaver Button Company, Illinois Humanities, Megan McGrath, Wendy Miller, Our Miss Brooks 100, Spudnik Press, Studs Terkel Radio Archive, Christine Tarkowski, U Media, Public Building Commission of Chicago, Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill, and my awesome team, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Give them all a hand. Today's event is a restaging of the 1967 Chicago Picasso dedication. Each of today's speakers and performers is taking the place of a 1967 participant, all of whom are noted in your program. You, as audience members, also play an important role. Although it's a restaging, it's not really 1967. So we encourage you to take photos and share them on social media using the hashtag PicassoIs50. Last, I know that a number of you were here for the original dedication 50 years ago. If you were here in 1967, will you please stand? Wow, don't they look great? They include Pat and Mike Skymansky, who got their marriage license over in City Hall and then came here for the unveiling. Let's give them a hand. And Ed Milichik is here honoring his father. His father was a steel worker. He created at Southworks the Core 10 steel that then was sent to Gary that created this massive monumental Picasso. Let's give his father a hand. So let me offer my remarks. Chicago is a complex and often a conflicted city. This prairie town on the lake also engenders a deep creative urge. Chicago gave birth to the skyscraper, the poetry slam, improv, and storefront theater. The music of the world has been shaped by Chicago's black music tradition of jazz, gospel, blues, and house. We embraced our lakeshore like no other city on the globe, and now our river becomes a second waterfront. The play between our majestic skyline and urban parks is enthralling. And Chicago has a world-class public art collection that shapes our environment and engages us in a public dialogue. I was 16 years old and living on the far south side of the city when Chicago's Picasso was unveiled. Though I knew little of the world of art, I vividly remember the aftershocks with the arrival of the Picasso. During our family dinner, there was an animated discussion about this new and seemingly alien art object. Was it a joke on us? Had we been had? What the hell was it? Who was this dude called Picasso? A mix of outrage and curiosity fueled our discussion. Now, 50 years later, we gather to restage the Picasso dedication. We come together to revisit the past and to bring fresh eyes to this iconic artwork. This massive cubic structure had no name, and while the public may have been dismayed by this sculpture, with no apparent connection to the city's history, just art for the sake of art, Chicago's children were drawn to it, and within 10 years turned it into their new playground. The Chicago Picasso inspired a cultural renaissance. Inspiring interest and support for public art is a defining Chicago experience. The Chicago Picasso excited our imaginations and laid the foundation for the creation of Millennium Park and its great new public art. This is also the 50th anniversary of the Wall of Respect, the Black arts creation on the South Side, which inspired political and socially engaged murals here and across the country. In the year of public art, we are again seeking to inspire our city, its leaders, both public and private, our artists, our communities, and our citizens, as we embrace a more expansive scope and definition of public art. With our 50 by 50 neighborhood arts project, we are bringing public artists to every ward in our city. Our parks are becoming more special as public art is ever more present. Our CTA stations are coming to life with art installations, and our cultural organizations and community groups embrace public art in order to engage the public and reshape our urban environment. We are indebted to Picasso and to the civic leaders who had the vision, the gutsiness, and fortitude to bring this Picasso to Chicago. It was a seminal moment in the history of our city, a moment when we moved from the utilitarian and ceremonial to the embrace of a bold and artful idea of public art, and in a reimagining of our public spaces and the nature of our city. It's my pleasure to join you today. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the After School Matters Orchestra. Give them a hand.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexa Moster, and I am a proud 10-year member of the Chicago Children's Choir and a singer with our top performance ensemble, The Voice of Chicago, who are the singers that you see before you today, led by the brilliant president and artistic director of our awesome organization, Miss Josephine Lee. We're so thrilled to be celebrating 2017 as a monumental year of public art in Chicago, and what a better way to do so than continuing to show appreciation for what I think is one of the biggest artistic treasures ever given to our city. The Chicago Children's Choir was founded in 1956 as a single choir in the Hyde Park neighborhood by a man named Reverend Christopher Moore, who had a vision of uniting a group of diverse youth throughout our city through the power of music and musical excellence. And 60 years later, we've continued to do the same on an even grander scale. The Chicago Children's Choir currently serves 5,000 youth in every zip code of Chicago through 115 individual choirs, many of which have a specific emphasis on bringing music education to youth in Chicago public schools that may not otherwise have access to artistic resources. And today is just as monumental of an occasion for the Chicago Children's Choir as it is for our city, because we were fortunate enough to sing at the original unveiling of this brilliant sculpture in 1967 when it originally was unveiled. And so today we are here to do the same. So we invite all of you to join us in celebrating creativity, art, innovation, culture, and above all, the best and brightest of what our beautiful city has to offer through our national anthem. Thank you so much.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave, home of the brave.
Thank you, Chicago Children's Choir. Hello, Chicago. I am Jacqueline Terraza. I'm the Women's Board Endowed Chair of Learning and Public Engagement at the Art Institute of Chicago, and I'm just thrilled and honored to be here today. At the Art Institute of Chicago, our civic mission is to champion the power of art in everybody's lives. That is also what public art asks us to do. The best public art stops us on our tracks and asks us to be more open. It reminds us of our capacity to see possibilities that don't yet exist. I will tell you 3 very short stories and ask you to imagine. Imagine 50 years ago. You are Chicago's mayor, and on a day like today, you dedicate a sculpture that has no precedent. It looks nothing like the commemorative monuments that Chicagoans know as public art. You, Mayor Richard J. Daley, take a leap of faith. You do so, and I quote, with the belief that what is strange to us today will be familiar tomorrow. Now you imagine that you are William E. Hartman, a civic leader and a senior partner at the prestigious architecture firm Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. It is 1963. Your firm is involved in the planning of the new Civic Center where we stand today. You know there is more at stake than just buildings and a plaza. You have been witnessing the exodus of wealth from the city to the suburbs, the loss of industry and commerce, the decline of education in Chicago. From your travels to Europe and New York, you know that to remain a great city, the urban core has to remain vibrant. You believe that as a symbol and site of government, the Civic Center needs to be something worth talking about. You express that the plaza and its buildings need to stand for the strength of the central city. You meet with other planners and civic leaders. You reach out to experts at the Art Institute of Chicago who help you scheme a way to approach no one less than Pablo Picasso. The experts write him a letter. And soon after that, you and a small group visit Picasso in his studio in the south of France and ask the greatest, most famous artist alive to make an artwork for the new plaza. Now imagine that you are Picasso. You are 83 and world famous. You have been asked to design a major artwork for a city you have never visited. You have been shown photographs of Chicago, and you have been told stories about the city. This would be your first monumental sculpture outdoors in the United States. The artwork will be sited in the heart of Chicago, a city rebuilt from the ashes by the best architects anywhere. The artwork needs to relate to a building made of steel that has not yet been finished, the kind of Corten steel produced by machines in Gary, Indiana. You take a risk. You spend more than a year planning with form through drawings and sculptural models, and in the end, you, Picasso, make a modern artwork for a modern city, a city of commerce, of industry, of architecture, and culture. You are so proud of what you've done that you gift one of the models and a set of drawings to the Art Institute. And not only that, you refuse payment and you gift the sculpture to the city. Through the power of its startling forms and its towering grace, the work of art you have conceived asks every Chicagoan and every visitor to also take a leap of faith. Perhaps in its ambiguity, the work of art asks us to embrace openness and possibility, to celebrate the changing, multidimensional, and brave spirit of this city. I invite you to see Picasso's drawings and that maquette at the Art Institute in the galleries. Founded only 8 years after the Great Chicago Fire, the Art Institute was also the proud product of a bold civic vision to make a city not as it had been, but as it could be, with art and culture at its heart. Today, week after week, thousands come to this very plaza to see Chicago's Picasso and to play on it, to buy produce, to enjoy music, to make their way to work, and sometimes to protest. Millions also gather a few blocks away in Millennium Park to see and enjoy a marvelous fountain and a resplendent bean, major public artworks created by two of the world's most important artists today, John Plensa and Anish Kapoor. These and many other public artworks provide focal points for community. They remind us that art is not an enhancement, it is a necessity. Art asks us to take a leap of faith. Whether as makers or as viewers, art asks us to exercise our imagination and open our sense of possibility. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chicago. My name is Jung Lee, and I am the director of the National Public Housing Museum, and it is an honor to be here today with you in our beautiful sanctuary city to celebrate public art. Nelson Algren, one of Chicago's great writers, described our city's history as a tangle of hustlers, gangsters, and corrupt politicians. But he also declared his love for our city with this famous description: "Once you've become a part of this particular patch, you'll never love another. Like loving a woman with a broken nose, you may well find lovelier lovelies, but never a lovely so real." This is so true of Chicago, true of our Picasso, and true of so much of our city's art. Chicago's public art looks you in the eye and dares you to flinch. Chicago's art history, brilliantly diverse, is a people's history of artworks that insists that you see the world in startling new ways, to question the status quo, challenge authority, and to speak truth to power. Our city's public art defiantly represents what we are against and what we are for. To understand this history, we can look to Chicago's first public art museum, located at the Hull House Settlement, founded by Jane Addams in 1889. Now the site of the Jane Addams Hull House Museum on the University of Illinois at Chicago's campus, establishing a place for Chicago's immigrant communities to see, make, and discuss art across lines of difference in order to broaden and expand worldviews and forge new community. This was one of the earliest efforts of America's first woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Jane Addams and her fellow Chicagoans practiced democracy by embracing public art. They cherished and nurtured the belief, a truth that is self-evident in a great democracy, that in addition to social and economic rights, we all have creative and cultural rights as well. And they fought not only for our right to access beauty, but also the right for communities to determine what is beautiful for ourselves. This inventive spirit to create new forms of beauty, to sing new songs, and to establish new values was also part of Chicago's Black arts movement. We can look to Haki Madhubuti and Gwendolyn Brooks, to William Walker and the artists of the Organization of Black American Culture, who in 1967, the very same year of Chicago's Picasso, began painting the Wall of Respect on the side of a building on the corner of 43rd Street and Langley Avenue. This mural gave birth to Chicago's vibrant street art movement of graffiti artists who stake their claim to our city and challenge us every day to ask ourselves, what is beautiful and who gets to decide? Chicago also recognizes that truth and justice belong alongside beauty. In this instance, we might look to the Chicago Torture Justice Memorials that aim to honor and seek justice for the survivors of Chicago police torture, their family members, and the African American communities affected by the torture. This effort of radical imagination and creativity helped to bring about landmark reparations in our city. Chicago understands that bringing more justice into the world is an act of cultural creation, an act of beauty, an act of wonder, and one of struggle. Some might see the arts movements in our city as cultural expressions of political movements. One could also say that the social struggles of our city are the political action wings of the arts movements. But in truth, art movements are not separate from social struggle, but rather all are together and are part of a freedom movement, a movement to claim our right to the city. Chicago's Picasso, located here in Daley Plaza, on this land inhabited once by Potawatomi Indians, is part of our lovely, so real city, a city of dazzling ambition and possibilities, and a city of dreams deferred. Chicago's Picasso, like the best of our public art, changes the meaning of what art is, what it can do, and who it is for. When we celebrate public art in our lovely arts and cultural landscape that spans the city from the west side to the north and the south side of Chicago, in our parks, in our public squares, in our underpasses, in our public institutions, we celebrate the best of our ideals as Chicagoans and as human beings. We embrace a beautiful, a true, and a just future for all of us. Thank you.
Hello. What an honor to be on the stage with you today. This portion of the presentation, we're representing the world of abstraction according to Picasso's spirit. From tradition to the future, you're gonna enjoy and come with us to the world of abstraction. And of course, you didn't get to hear beautiful poetry of Avery Young, so I'm gonna have him join us to do the poetry with our music.
praying, no praying, no praying, no praying, no praying, no praying. Peace.
Wow, how does one top that? I don't sing, so don't worry about that. Hi, I'm Carlos Tortoledo, president of the National Museum of Mexican Art in Pilsen, the heart of public art in Chicago. 50 years ago, a young boy came with his father downtown to buy his first pair of glasses. As they walked downtown, they came across a very large group of people. One couldn't even walk, it was so crowded. As a young boy looked around to see what was causing all the commotion, he kept wondering what was happening and hoping that it wasn't anything bad that was happening. But when he looked up, he saw something glorious was happening. The Picasso was being unveiled. The Picasso, which has become a symbol of our city, in a very, very beautiful way, it has become almost like a friend to us. It has become something that puts a smile on our face and makes us proud to be Chicagoans. That boy was me. I had no idea this was taking place. And now here I am. And I'm so very, very honored to be here speaking at this event. At times, life can be so surreal and amazing. But you know what is amazing? Chicago's public art is amazing. Probably no other city in the country has such fantastic public art. No city can claim to be a great city, a global city, an international city without great public art. It's not possible. One of the most beautiful things about public art is that it is free, free, free. It is very, very, very democratic. Anyone, no matter their income or how much schooling they have, has access to it. That's amazing. Teachers, children, doctors, folks who work in factories, bus drivers, bankers, seniors, everybody has opportunity to enjoy our species' creative imagination and talent. One can drive, bike, and walk throughout the city and see sculptures, murals, installations everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. Wow, isn't that a marvelous, marvelous thing about Chicago? From the murals in Pilsen, which I love, to the Bean, to all of the sculptures done by the great arts person, Richard Hunt, throughout the city. Public arts graces our city. Yeah, Richard Hunt is amazing. Much of the public art in our city has been government funded, a very important investment in our city. And we're happy that we have a mayor who is supporting this. Public art invokes all kinds of feelings in all of us, from the feeling of joy to the feeling of sadness. But more importantly, public art challenges us to think, explore, wonder, criticize, or support what is happening in the world. We are living in a very scary time at the moment, when our democracy is eroding and threatened. This makes art more important than ever. To know if, ands, or buts about it, our democracy is in crisis, and we need the artists to do their art, to lead the way. Always remember, always, that art is essential to a democracy. Let me conclude by saying, Viva Picasso, Viva Public Art, and Viva Chicago! I now have the honor of introducing the next speaker, the winner of the Gwendolyn Brooks Youth Poetry Award, Chelsea Chow from Josephinum Academy. Chelsea.
This is my poem, Bloodline. If blood has a sound, it bursts through edges of teeth, leaving a trail of rust atop the tongue. If blood has a sound, it stamps the portrait as a heart's pound, a progression of reverie and deathly songs. If blood has a sound, it orchestrates a life all around, the hairs of famines, plagues, and wars. If blood has a sound, it spells out the distance of hatred bound, the civil war of humans igniting on dark ground. If blood has a sound, it chides the humans that did it harm, a history of careless prides and battles beyond. The politics of raw beliefs, living in cross-section of poverty and broken sleeps. The photographs of faraway past, relive in today's newspaper the tomorrow's dust. So the veins of generations unwind, coil around the spines of all those blind. The mistakes made after the sound of the din chased us on like layers of dead skin.
Congratulations to Chelsea and the other award winners for the Gwendolyn Brooks Youth Poetry Awards. Yay! The full awards will be at the Logan Center on October 7th. So, my name is Nora Brooks Blakely, and I am proud to be here, writer and president of Brooks Permissions, which is committed to demonstrating the continuing relevance of the life and work of Gwendolyn Brooks in the 21st century and beyond. I am proud to be the stand-in for my mother, Gwendolyn Brooks, today in this incredibly exciting year, 50th anniversary for the Picasso, 50th anniversary for the Wall of Respect, and a 100th year, the centennial celebration for Gwendolyn Brooks. And I'd like to say that she was the only person that was asked to be there and to read for both the Wall of Respect and the Picasso openings. The poem that she wrote for the Picasso, the Chicago Picasso, originally has two epigraphs. Well, an epigraph and an epigraph-ish. So, epigraph. Mayor Daley tugged a white ribbon, loosing the blue percale wrap. A hearty cheer went up as the covering slipped off the big steel sculpture that looks at once like a bird and a woman. That's from the Chicago Sun-Times. Epigraph-ish. Seiji Ozawa leads the symphony. The mayor smiles, and 50,000 see. Does man love art? Man visits art, but squirms. Art hurts. Art urges voyages, and it is easier to stay at home, the nice beer ready. In common rooms, we belch, or sniff, or scratch, are raw. But we must cook ourselves and style ourselves for art, who is a requiring courtesan. We squirm. We do not hug the Mona Lisa. We may touch or tolerate an astounding fountain or a horse and rider, at most another lion. Observe the tall cold of a flower which is as innocent and as guilty, as meaningful and as meaningless as any other flower in the western field. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you also. Your mother is a treasure and an American icon. If I can ask all the kids from the choir as well as from After School Matters to stand one more time so the rest of America can see what a beautiful mosaic we have here in Chicago. From every neighborhood and every part of the world, we have a mosaic here in Chicago. And to all the artists that performed, thank you. What happened here 50 years ago was more than an unveiling of a work of art. It was a critical inflection point in Chicago's story. It was a spark that ignited 5 decades and more than 1,400 pieces of public art throughout our city. They call this piece everyone's Picasso because it belongs to all of us. Chicago's public art is a reminder of our shared history, of the Great Migration, of the Haymarket Riot, of a city that rose again in the ashes of the Chicago fire. Picasso's gift to the people of Chicago inspired so many artists to follow in his footsteps. Standing right here, you can see a Dubuffet and a Miro out here. We can look across our city from Chicago's mosaic, from Chagall's and Calder's Flamingo, to Anish Kapoor's Cloudgate, to Melgodana's Agora, to the art in our CTA stations, our neighborhood parks, our libraries, and along Lakeshore Drive. They are not just Chicago's legacies of the past, they are a prologue to Chicago's future. All across the city, there are talented artists, actors, sculptors, painters, musicians, dancers, and poets who are writing a new chapter in Chicago's story. In Chicago today, we have the next Picasso, the next artist who will challenge us to think differently, to dream bigger, to be bolder, and to change the way we look at the world. Picasso once said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he or she grows up." This piece helps us all remain artists. It helps us delight and amaze the child in all of us. That is what makes the Chicago Picasso a Chicago icon. It is everyone's Picasso because it belongs to all of us in Chicago, and we share it with everyone in the world. It is a gift that we are proud to share with the world. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this day, especially while there are a lot of cultural, educational, public officials. I want to thank the Consul General of Spain for being here, for giving Picasso to the 20th century and the world beyond. And I also want to thank another Chicago icon for being here, Richard Hunt. Thank you.
Let's also honor all of our artists who are participating in the 50 by 50 Neighborhood Arts Project. Please stand. There are artists out in every ward in this city. Please stand. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Chicago artist Edra Soto, who will lead us through the veiling and the unveiling of the Chicago Picasso. Edra.
My dearest Chicago, my name is Edra Soto, and this is my distinctive honor to welcome you to the official unveiling of this magnificent Chicago Picasso. Since this is a symbolic unveiling, I will need the assistance of each and every one of you who's holding a fan. And this is the fan. Designing this fan was my contribution to this event. Thank you to the city, the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs, Daniel Schulman and Paul Durica for inviting me. Also, I wanted to thank Sputnik Press for producing this beautiful piece. As an artist living in Chicago for almost 2 decades, this is a meaningful moment that allows me to voice my sincere love and devotion for the arts. And at this moment, I would like to ask you for a minute of reflection. Now, please raise your please raise your fan before your eyes. And let's think about the beautiful art of this city. And let's imagine, if you can imagine, for a moment, what this city will be like without art. Please uncover your eyes. Happy anniversary. Feliz aniversario. Chicago Picasso. Let this be the year that we will replenish the city with beautiful and meaningful public art by our Chicago contemporary artists. Thank you.
So what an incredible celebration as we celebrate the iconic Picasso and we push public art forward everywhere in this city. It becomes the defining fabric of the city is public art. Let's hear it for the Picasso. Let's hear it for public art in this city. And to close this celebration, the great Orbert Davis and his band. Give him a hand.
Thank you. My name is Orbert Davis. I'm joined today with Ernie Adams on drum and David Spencer on trumpet. We're performing a new composition, Pablo's Perspective, for two trumpets and drum.
Thank you for joining us, and let's thank all of our participants, our artists that performed today. Remember, we have a public art festival coming in October and more great public art being dedicated in every ward of the city. Thank you.